Good afternoon. The city is under a freezing rain warning with slippery conditions expected through the evening.
Drivers across the GTA are being urged to be cautious on the roads and make sure they're driving to the conditions. CTV's Beth McDonnell has been following the changing conditions and joins us live with more. Beth.
Nathan and Michelle, it's expected to be a treacherous and messy day traveling around the GTA. Right now, it's foggy. The rain hasn't started yet. The roads are wet, but not icy. I'm near Highway 400 and Highway 7. That's because everyone north of the 401 is expected to see the worst of this freezing rain system that's on the way. The city of Vaughan has more than 60 trucks across the city on standby to salt roads and sidewalks as needed. Environment Canada says the precipitation is forecast to start any time now over the noon hour and continue through the afternoon and into the afternoon commute. Some snow is also expected further north.
So the ice accretion expected, the ice buildup on surfaces, is expected to be 1 to 5 millimeters, which doesn't sound like a lot, but if it comes out of, if you're moving from a clear road area to an icy area, you could be caught off guard. So any ice buildup in these conditions can be tricky for drivers and pedestrians as well.
Continuously monitoring the forecast, looking at ground temperatures, looking at travel times, keeping close communication with our operations team to make sure that we're ready to go as needed and can make those sound judgments as they're required.
Environment Canada says Toronto could also get some freezing rain, but that chance should decrease the closer you get to the lake. It says the risk of freezing rain should ease up by around 7 o'clock tonight. Reporting live in Vaughan, I'm Beth McDonnell. Michelle and Nathan, back to you.
All right, thank you, Beth. We have more news in a moment, but first a look at the forecast. Here's a live look at the city this afternoon. And we've already talked about concerns about driving because of the weather and possible freezing rain into the evening. Jessica Smith has a look at the current conditions. It looks nice and comfortable by the water, but the road's a different story.
Temperature-wise, it's actually not too bad, Nathan. We will be above seasonal start to finish today, so that is really going to impact what you see depending on where you are in the GTA and across central and southern Ontario. But regardless, it is going to be a challenging drive through your afternoon and evening. We're watching this push in right now, already impacting areas through Stratford, through Kitchener, through Hamilton, and it's knocking on the door of the GTA as we step into the afternoon. We are under that freezing rain warning here in the city of Toronto across the GTA, so keep that in mind. It is going to impact your drive whether we see a ton of ice accretion or not. We're looking at pretty heavy precipitation as we head throughout that midpoint of our afternoon and onwards. We're sitting, though, on the positive side for the most part, but where we see the cooler temperatures, that's where the bigger risk for that ice accretion and those ice pellets are. So anywhere kind of east of the downtown core. But again, whether it is icy or it is just rain, it is going to be a rough commute this afternoon and this evening. I know a lot of buses are canceled. We're sitting at 1 degree through the islands, through Pearson this afternoon, getting up to 2. But that's when the bulk of this messy weather comes in. Coming up, we will time out your afternoon drive and what you can expect heading into the rest of the week. But right now, it's back over to Michelle.
Thank you, Jessica. A man has been arrested in connection with a stabbing near Dundas and Bloor. This happened near Dundas and Jerome Street around 3 p.m. yesterday. Police say a woman in her 70s was taken to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. A man in his 70s was taken into custody. He was also treated for minor injuries.
A woman is fighting for her life following a multi-vehicle crash in Brampton. Peel police say 3 vehicles collided near Torbram Rd and Countryside Drive just before 5 p.m. yesterday. A woman was airlifted to a trauma center in critical condition, while a second person was taken to hospital with minor injuries. All the drivers involved remained at the scene, and an investigation is ongoing.
Meanwhile, emergency crews rescued a person trapped in a vehicle following a crash in North York. Police say 2 vehicles collided near Lawrence and Leslie around 4 p.m. yesterday, causing them to veer off the road and close to a ravine. Toronto fire crews had to extricate a man from one of the vehicles. He was taken to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. The cause of this crash is under investigation.
And one person has been arrested for impaired driving following a crash in North York overnight. It happened near Bayview and Ruth Avenue, south of Steeles. Police say no serious injuries were reported.
Some lawyers say a new online portal intended to streamline access to Ontario's court system is instead creating new hurdles and unpredictable delays. The portal was launched in the fall to allow people to file documents, pay fees, and find virtual links for court hearings in non-criminal matters. However, lawyers say tasks that used to take a day or two, like scheduling a motion, can now take weeks. They also claim the portal is not completely synced with the Superior Court of Justice's mandatory document sharing platform and may not show every case a lawyer is participating in. Demonstrators gathered outside Queen's Park today calling on the Ford government to ensure victims of the Ipro Realty scandal are compensated.
The scandal saw the now defunct company use millions from trust accounts meant to be used for realtor commissions. CTV's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Siobhan Morris has been following this story and joins us live with more. Siobhan.
Well, this has been a difficult many months for the people that showed up to Queen's Park today. They say they've been having to make really difficult decisions in their home life, in their work life, because they just don't have money coming in the door. Some families say that they're out tens of thousands of dollars. Now, the government has promised to pay 50% of what they're owed, money that was held back or lost in trust. But they say that's not enough, that they deserve the 100% that they are still owed. We heard from some of the people that were affected. Here's what one of them had to say.
How hard it is for us to make money in this market as a realtor?
Very hard.
There you go. And our families are suffering. Most of the realtors over here are full-time realtors. For past 9 months, we've been waiting for our money. And guess what happens? We submit the form, we submit all these documents, and after a few months they say, oh, we'll give you 50% first and final.
Now, besides the money, these people say that they want accountability. They want justice and answers about how this was able to happen. The OPP launched an investigation back in September, but there are questions about why that wasn't a first step being taken when this all came to light last year. Reporting live outside Queen's Park, I'm Siobhan Morris. Nathan and Michelle, back to you.
Thank you, Siobhan. Still to come, Venezuela is facing an uncertain future following the ouster of Nicolas Maduro. We'll have more on the issues facing the South American nation a little later in the newscast. But first, thousands of people have been forced from their homes on a Manitoba First Nation.
A power outage impacted the community's water system, and it remains unclear when people will be able to return. CTV's Alex Karpop reports.
This is reality for many living in Pimicikamak Cree Nation in northern Manitoba. Water can be seen flooding homes throughout the community. A downed power line left residents without power and heat in extremely cold conditions for 4 days, leaving the community's entire water system frozen, with some pipes even bursting as a result. Now over 4,000 people have been forced to evacuate, leaving many questioning when they can return home.
The main concern right now for me is the water, because you need water to survive.
Ellis McKay has been in Winnipeg for a week. He says he doesn't know what state his house is in.
So I don't know what's going on in my house, really, because all of people I live with are here too.
Pimicikamak Cree Nation Chief David Monias is calling for immediate help to assist with various emergency services.
We were asking for carpenters, electricians, plumbers to try and come help us identify and assess what's required there.
Some believe this situation was entirely preventable.
This would never happen in the community down south, and our people up north have always been neglected, abandoned in times of crisis, and this is unfair that our people have to go through this.
As for McKay, he now has one wish for the new year.
Well, I hope that just, we get to go home soon.
Federal Minister Rebecca Chartrand, Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew, and other provincial ministers are set to visit the community later this week to assess the damage left in the wake of the power outage. Alex Karpa, CTV News, Winnipeg.
Prime Minister Mark Carney is taking part in high-level talks in Paris today, focused on a peace agreement to end the war in Ukraine. He says a major issue is how to provide security guarantees for Ukraine to protect against possible future attacks by Russia.
There is a lot of momentum in this process, and that's why it's important. It's important that Canada's here. That's why I'm here, is because there's momentum, because that progress has been made, and important to, as I say, to finalize this key component a broader peace agreement.
And Carney also met with the head of NATO, Mark Rutte, and praised him for his work to keep members united.
From getting us all to step up and have resources for not just today, but in the medium term for the new threat environment, but also bringing that unique expertise and diplomacy and political skill that's helping to navigate incredible progress that has been made towards a just and lasting peace in Ukraine.
Rutte also praised Canada for its ongoing commitment to Ukraine amid Russia's ongoing invasion. He also outlined support for Canada's work to protect the far north from military incursions.
Venezuela's opposition leader, Maria Corina Machado, is praising U.S. President Donald Trump for the military raid that led to the capture of Nicolas Maduro.
January 3rd will go down in history as the day justice defeated a tyranny. It's a milestone, and it's not only huge for the Venezuelan people and our future, I think it's a huge step for humanity, for freedom and human dignity.
Machado making those comments during an interview with Fox News. She also called Maduro's removal a huge step towards a democratic transition for Venezuela. She ran against Maduro and won the primary election before being banned by the government. Machado was recently awarded the Nobel Peace Prize and says she plans to return to Venezuela as soon as possible. Meantime, Maduro and his wife appeared in a U.S. federal court yesterday, pleading not guilty to 4 charges, including narco-terrorism and cocaine importation. Speaking in Spanish, Maduro told the judge, quote, "I was captured at my home in Caracas, Venezuela. I am innocent. I am not guilty. I am still the president of my country," end quote. The next court date is set for March. CTV's Scott Hurst has been following this developing story, and he joins us live now with the latest. Scott, we heard from the Prime Minister this morning of Canada on the situation in Venezuela and his reaction to the potential impact on the Canadian oil industry.
Michelle, Mark Carney made these comments in Paris earlier today as he is in France meeting with world leaders, mostly to talk about the future of Ukraine, but of course still lots of reaction to the significant and dramatic geopolitical ramifications of the U.S. operation in Venezuela ousting Nicolas Maduro. And the Prime Minister said ultimately the removal of what he called an illegitimate leader is welcome news and creates the possibility of a democratic transition, which is a positive step for the people of Venezuela. He was also asked about the potential impact on the Canadian oil and gas industry. As the U.S. president has been saying, he's pushing U.S. oil companies to invest in oil infrastructure in Venezuela to rebuild that part of the economy. Mark Carney saying he believes Canada has a competitive product, and he says that his government has been investing and pushing a lot to find new markets for Canadian oil and gas. Here's more from the Prime Minister.
We welcome the prospect of peace, a peaceful transition, democratic Venezuela. We welcome the prospect of greater prosperity in Venezuela, but we also see the competitiveness of Canadian oil, and we're investing, or we're putting in place measures so that that's going to happen.
Meanwhile, Conservative leader is taking this opportunity to hold the Prime Minister to account and push for more specifics on how his government is helping the oil and gas industry and trying to get it to new markets. And in a letter posted on social media directed to the Prime Minister, it says the official opposition is calling on your government to approve a new Pacific pipeline within 60 days of receiving Alberta's proposal. After all, you were elected, as it says, on a promise to build at speeds not seen in generations. This is your opportunity to prove it. And he went on to say, we do not have time for bureaucratic games or symbolic signing ceremonies, referencing the memorandum of understanding that he did sign with Alberta Premier Danielle Smith, Michelle, late last year.
Now, Canadians across the country have also been voicing their opinions, rallying since Maduro was captured. Walk us through the reaction.
Well, the Trump administration ultimately is not backing down. The White House is claiming its actions are justified. There are, however, others in the international community arguing about the legality of the strike, and many at the United Nations have been condemning the U.S. operation. In terms of Venezuelans here in Canada, there are a lot of them expressing cautious optimism here in Canada and around the world. Many who have suffered themselves or have family members under the brutal regime are seeing this as a positive step. So there is hope for the future of the country, that the economy might be able to be rebuilt in a democratic process. But many ultimately, Michelle, are wary of a potential takeover of Venezuela by the U.S. government. So lots of questions, of course, in the immediacy about the operation of the U.S. and the strike on Venezuela and capturing Nicolas Maduro and bringing him to the U.S. to face the court system there, but also long-term, lots of questions about what this could mean for the future and rebuilding the economy in Venezuela.
And the world is watching. CTV's Scott Hurst live for us in the National Newsroom. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle.
Some Canadian travelers were disrupted by U.S. military action in Venezuela.
CTV's Matt Gilmore spoke to passengers about the delays and the potential impact on their future travel plans.
In advance of the United States' attack on Venezuela, the U.S. warned commercial airlines to avoid flying within 100 miles of Venezuelan airspace. Courtney Almeida was scheduled to fly home from Costa Rica on January 2nd, but when she got to the airport, it was chaos.
It was crazy. People are just on the floor for 3.5, 4 hours, and then we're going to fly, and then it's delayed again, canceled again. So, yeah, at one point I was told to sleep on the floor of the airport.
Almeida says she spent the entire next day waiting for the airline to sort through the backlog. Instead of a direct flight home to Toronto, she was eventually put on an overnight flight to Montreal. As of Monday afternoon, she'd been waiting over 36 hours for a connection.
I was at the hotel last night. I've arrived here today, and I've already been told my flight is delayed.
On Sunday, Donald Trump threatened further military intervention in neighboring Colombia and predicted the government in Cuba is on the verge of collapse. Canada has not issued any new travel advisories for the region, but over the weekend, Air Canada said it would allow customers flying to several Caribbean countries to change their destinations at no cost.
In their case, it's a smart move because they have to get less people out of the country that if it gets shut down.
Travel agent Catherine Villan says she expects some people will think twice about traveling south this winter, but says Cuba has always been a popular destination despite the political situation.
People are pouring into Cuba even when there was no food and there was no toilet paper. I mean, that didn't seem to faze people in the slightest. They just packed it and went.
Sunwing says it's monitoring the situation and at this time is not seeing any significant impact on bookings. At the Montreal airport, Quebecers destined for Cuba had no plans to cancel.
Because I pay, I want to go to playas.
No, I'm not worried about it.
For Almeida, though, who has already been caught up in the fallout, it's not worth the risk.
At one point, I honestly just started crying because I kind of felt like I'm never going to get home, you know? So I'm really hoping I don't have to miss a second day of work.
Travel agents say this is a good reminder to make sure you have travel insurance, especially in these unpredictable times. Matt Gilmore, CTV News.
Back in Paris, Canada's Prime Minister spoke with his Danish counterpart today, discussing Donald Trump's renewed comments about a U.S. takeover of Greenland.
The future of Greenland and Denmark are decided solely by the people of Denmark. And Greenland.
Several European leaders are offering the same message. They issued a statement today reaffirming the strategic, mineral-rich Arctic island belongs to its people. Greenland's prime minister says he will again ask the United States to seek a respectful dialogue. The island is a self-governing territory of the Kingdom of Denmark.
Prime Minister Mark Carney offered his thoughts on Freeland accepting a new role as an economic advisor to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky once a ceasefire agreement is reached.
There is real momentum. Nothing's assured, but there's real momentum in this peace process. And the security guarantees are incredibly important, but as is the reconstruction and the prosperity plan, and she'll be there to work on that. And look, we'll have a by-election. There'll be a few by-elections coming up, and we'll run great candidates, and the people in those ridings will decide who they want to send to Parliament.
And CTV's Annie Bergeron Oliver has been following this story and joins us live from Ottawa. Annie, when is Freeland set to assume her new role?
Hi, Nathan. Well, that's actually something that we don't know yet. There's a lot that we don't know about Chrystia Freeland's new role helping with Ukraine in this transformation. We don't know exactly when she's going to resign. She simply says she'll resign sometime in the coming weeks. And we don't know when this new role is going to begin. There's also very few details right now, Nathan, about what this new job looks like. We know that Zelensky praised her as somebody who's been a strong defender of Ukraine. He said that part of this role will include strengthening Ukraine's, quote, internal resilience. He talked about her ability to attract investment, and he said that she will help with Ukraine's economic transformation. We do know that she's going to be helping to bring together some international council of advisors to help Ukraine in this transition, but we don't yet know when this new role will start.
And assuming she resigns from Parliament, what will this mean for the Liberals going forward?
Well, we know she's going to resign from Parliament. She said that will happen in the coming weeks. We just don't know exactly when. First, what does it mean? Well, it means that there's going to be a by-election in University Rosedale. This is traditionally a very strong Liberal riding, so the Liberals do have a good chance of winning it again. However, in politics, there is never a guarantee and anything can happen. On the other side of things, from the federal government's perspective, it means that there's a little bit more math they have to do. They have to work a little bit harder to try to get their agenda passed. Right now, they're one seat shy of a majority government. Once Chrystia Freeland steps down, then they're going to be 2 seats away from getting their legislation passed. For example, there's a vote coming up in the near future on the budget implementation bill. So if Chrystia Freeland has resigned by the time this vote happens, the government will have to try to find 2 opposition MPs, whether that's in the NDP, whether that's with the Greens, potentially even the Bloc. They'll need to find 2 people at least who either want to support it or they need to find people who are going to abstain to help with their numbers. So it just makes the math a little bit more complicated here.
You know, did you see this coming? Were you surprised by this?
You know, I think that a lot of people have seen that Chrystia Freeland was sort of on her way out from politics. It wasn't that long ago, I believe back in September, maybe a bit earlier, that she stepped out of cabinet and decided that that's not where she wanted to be, that she was going to get this position as a special representative for Ukraine's reconstruction as a parliamentary secretary. And then, you know, back in November, she announced that she was taking a job at the Rhodes Trust, which runs the Rhodes Scholarship, and she would be moving to Oxford in England as of July 1st, so she would be leaving the country. So, you know, there are some signals that she has been moving out of cabinet. In terms of this specific role, I think a lot of people did not see it coming. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that it was a surprise. She has a long-standing relationship with Ukraine. She does have a long-standing relationship with Zelensky. And the role itself perhaps is a surprise, but a lot of people say she was a good fit. If we have time, I actually believe we have a clip from Mark Carney, the Prime Minister, talking about Chrystia Freeland and this new role.
Did you ask her not to quit because of the minority parliament situation?
No, absolutely not. First off, let me.
As a member of parliament.
Just to be clear. Ms. Freeland, Chrystia has served our country for well over a decade in a formal role as a parliamentarian, certainly in a number of ministerial posts, and served with great distinction. She was, I had her as my special envoy after she left cabinet for the Ukraine reconstruction. Judgment became her judgment that she could be more useful for that process as she was leaving, as she was retiring as a parliamentarian, as a direct advisor. My judgment was that taking that role would be consistent with resigning as an MP.
So the big question now, Nathan, is when exactly will this resignation happen? Chrystia Freeland is under a lot of pressure from Conservative MPs, even the NDP's interim leader, Don Davies, who were saying that she should not be able to work for a foreign government while also being a member of Parliament who's paid by taxpayers. So she has announced she will resign in the coming weeks, but for a lot of members of Parliament in the opposition, that's not good enough. They believe that she should be resigning immediately. Nathan?
All right. CTV's Annie Bergeron-Oliver in Ottawa. Thank you.
Thank you.
Today marks 5 years since the deadly riot on the U.S. Capitol following Donald Trump's loss in the 2020 presidential election to Joe Biden.
This is our Capitol!
This was the scene when an angry mob stormed the Capitol buildings, forcing their way inside while lawmakers tried to escape. Several people died as a result of the attack, and more than 700 people were arrested. Since then, Trump has pardoned nearly everyone who participated in the incident and fired Justice Department officials who prosecuted them.
New data from Stats Canada shows spending by international tourists in Canada was up in the third quarter. Tourism spending rose 0.7% as more international visitors spent money across most tourism industries. Accommodation services saw the biggest increase. However, spending by Canadian tourists within the country slowed, increasing by just 0.5%, which was down from the big boost it saw in the second quarter. The number of non-residents traveling into Canada increased in October but declined in November.
At the Vatican, a ceremony was held today, officially ending the 2025 Holy Year. Pope Leo closed the holy door of St. Peter's Basilica, symbolically ending a year-long celebration that drew millions of people to Rome. The ceremony preceded a mass celebrating the Feast of Epiphany. The pontiff has now also summoned the world's cardinals to the Vatican for 2 days of meetings starting tomorrow. They will discuss governing the 1.4 billion-strong Catholic Church. Jess.
It is going to be a challenging commute home for many as we make our way through the afternoon, with a Colorado low settling in just in time for that drive for many. So give yourself some extra time. We see a little bit of everything: periods of snow, freezing rain, ice pellets, rain. It really will depend on where you are, but regardless, you have to drive safe. The good news maybe is that we do have relatively mild temperatures, which will help in some aspects. Coming up, I'll have a full look at your long-range forecast. We'll break down who's going to see what and for how long. All those details coming up after the break.
When you see it happen, send it to CTV News. Text 10400 from your screen to ours. Text 10400.
Well, the Blue Jays are set to introduce their newest player this afternoon, Japanese star Kazuma Okamoto.
He's the latest addition to the team in what's been a busy offseason following the Jays' World Series appearance last year. CTV's Rahim Ladani joins us live with reaction to Okamoto's signing and how fans are feeling. But obviously the Jays are thinking they want to get back to the World Series.
Hey, Nathan. Yeah, they absolutely do. The Blue Jays are making one thing very clear during this offseason to both the fan base and to all of Major League Baseball. They are reloading with the hopes of getting back to the World Series, and they're willing to spend the money to help them get there. In about a half an hour from now, we are going to get introduced to the Jays' latest new signing, Japanese star Kazuma Okamoto. He signed a 4-year, $60 million deal, and he's a proven power hitter. He's hit more than 30 home runs in 6 straight seasons with the Yomiuri Giants in the Japanese League. And to add to that, he also plays first and third base. Now, the Jays fans, they're going to love hearing this. The 29-year-old is a player who should fit in great with the team's identity. He's known to be patient at the plate, wears pitchers down, and punishes any mistakes. Okamoto, as you mentioned, is the latest signing in what has been a very busy offseason for the Jays. They've already made big splashes in signing pitcher Dylan Cease to the richest pitching contract in franchise history. They've added to the bullpen. And remember Shane Bieber? Yes, well, he opted into his player option, so he'll be back pitching for the team for another season. Put it all together, and the Jays' rotation in bats, they've been bolstered. Now, already today, we are seeing a growing contingent of Japanese media here downtown for the press conference. And I want you to take a listen to what one of their reporters told me about what signing Okamoto will mean for the entire city of Toronto, as well as TSN's Matt Cause about the Jays offseason as a whole.
Okamoto is one of the greatest baseball player in Japan, and coming to MLB, I think this is a great thing. And a lot of fans wants to come in Toronto. Even my sister, she's actually from a favorite for a Giants fan, and she's looking forward to visit in Toronto to see him playing.
What this means is just how aggressive the Blue Jays have been. This offseason, they've already spent over $300 million in contracts. To put that in perspective, that's 130 more than any other team. They're doing their best to be like the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Now, there are still some questions in the Jays roster, most notably what happens with Bo Bichette. The Jays have already spent a lot of money this offseason, and if they want to sign Bichette, who's a free agent, it's going to cost them a lot more. And so we're going to be looking for some clarity to that question when we hear from Ross Atkins, the general manager, when the Jays introduce Okamoto in about a half hour's time. Reporting live, I'm Raheem Ladani. Nathan and Michelle, I'll send it back to you both in studio.
Look forward to the rest of your coverage. Thank you, Raheem. Can't wait till baseball season and nice weather, the dome open, because we're being tested this week. We had some warnings yesterday. Today we have weather warnings of a different kind.
Yeah, there's a lot of concern, especially when it gets to the sort of the freezing mark and you got all that snow melting.
It is a weird kind of mix because we have really mild temperatures here in the GTA, and we're watching for this big system to come through. So it has me thinking and longing for the summer baseball weather. We will get there soon enough, but we have to really get through this stretch of weather first. And it is going to be a messy afternoon. So keep that in mind. I know a lot of buses were canceled, but you're still picking up, doing, moving, driving. Give yourself that extra time. And if you don't really have to commute later on, probably a good idea to stay put. Weather is brought to you by the Presler Law Firm. Injury lawyers, you don't pay unless they win. Overcast out there, but still okay for now. Okay enough that folks are out enjoying these mild temperatures and having a skate down at Nathan Phillips Square. Now, as we head in towards the later part of our afternoon, that's when the bulk of this active weather rolls in for us. Because we are going through a relatively warmer air mass over the GTA, we're seeing quite a mixture. And then as we head further east, temperatures are significantly cooler. Right now, we're at +1, feeling like -2. We're at +1, the same through Windsor, but you get further east, anywhere kind of east of the GTA, and then you head out towards Ottawa, significantly colder. The same the further north you go. So as the system moves through that colder air, they're looking at more in the way of freezing rain, and that's where we have that potential for that 1 to 5 millimeters of ice accretion. Now, as we head in towards the rest of our day, at least temperature-wise, we're staying above that seasonal point. The same as we head in towards the evening, we should be at -9, and we will stay at +1, so that will help a little bit when it comes to the type of precipitation we are going to see. But nonetheless, it is a mess as we head throughout this second half of our day. So give yourself time on the roads and always drive according to the road and weather conditions. The good news is by the time we get to the commute tomorrow morning, a significantly different story. But again, those freezing rain warnings blanketing a large portion of the Golden Horseshoe and central and southern Ontario. So timing it all out. Again, as you make your way along the 401, we're looking at that freezing rain north of that. So if you're in Aurora, if you're out through Kitchener, you're down towards Hamilton, you could see that mix. For the downtown core, we're watching for more in the way of a wet snow or just a straight up rain. As we head in towards about 3:30, that's when we see the best chance for us when it comes to that freezing rain. And then behind that, the chance of a little bit of wet snow. But if you're out towards Oshawa, say Durham region, it is going to be messy. You have that freezing rain, but we are all under that freezing rain warning. We head in towards 6 p.m. It falls into more of a straight up rain for us in the downtown core and the bulk of the GTA. But again, if you are north of the 401, you're looking at snow, freezing rain, and that kind of rain snow mix. We get in towards about 10 p.m., still holding on as rain for the downtown core. We get to about midnight, 1 a.m., and the bulk of this is going to be gone. So as we head in towards the very end of our day today, finally some relief, and then we get through Wednesday, just a whole lot of cloud cover out there, and then the sunshine finally returns as we head into kind of that later point of the week. It is going to be challenging no matter where you are in the GTA this afternoon, this evening, so just be careful. Temperature-wise, though, we are holding on well above seasonal right throughout the week. We get into Thursday, 6 degrees, Friday, 7, but more rain on the way. The next time we get close to seasonal is not until Sunday. Hopefully this helps you plan. Nathan, I'll send it back to you.
All right. Thank you, Jess.
Thanks.
The Maple Leafs will be facing off against the Florida Panthers tonight.
Now, Domi got it freed up, looking for Matthews, who scores!
Austin Matthews became the team's all-time leading goal scorer in their last game on Saturday, a 4-3 overtime loss to the New York Islanders. Puck drop for tonight's game against the Panthers is set for just after 7:30 at Scotiabank Arena.
The Scepters will be looking to snap a 2-game losing skid when they face off against the Boston Fleet tonight.
Dalton has to score here for the Scepters. And Corrine Schroeder earns her first win with the Torrent.
The team is coming off a 3-2 shootout loss to the Seattle Torrent on Saturday. The game was played at TD Coliseum in Hamilton as part of the PWHL's Takeover Tour. Puck drop for tonight's game against Boston is set for just after 7 p.m. in Massachusetts.
For a second straight year, Toronto FC will hold most of its training camp in Marbella, Spain. Players are due to report to camp on Saturday in Toronto for medicals. The team will hold 2 training sessions before leaving on January 13th for Spain, where they'll begin a 3-week camp at the Marbella Football Center. The club says preseason games will be announced at a later date. The team is scheduled to return to Toronto on February 15th.
Still to come, Canadian energy stocks are looking to rebound following U.S. action in Venezuela. We'll have those details when we return.
Ontario government employees are now expected back in the office 5 days a week, with Alberta set to introduce a similar mandate next month.
However, public sector unions are already pushing back, saying there is no reason to change a system that is working fine. CTV's John Rao reports.
Work-life balance. With a simple message, these Ontario government workers held a lunchtime protest to show just how they feel about the full-time return to the office.
Frustrated because we were doing well working from home.
These workers had been allowed to do their job from home 2 days a week, but among the tens of thousands of Ontario public service workers now required to be in the office 5 days a week as of today.
It is frustrating. It is frustrating, yes.
Some complaining there's not enough office space to accommodate all of the workers being back full-time. But the Premier says it's all being worked on and will get sorted out.
It's great to get everyone back to work like every other normal citizen. You know, you go out there and you show up 5 days a week.
Ontario's civil servants aren't the only group to see an end to most hybrid work. Alberta's public service is returning to full-time in the office in February, as will Rogers Communications, while many of the country's major banks are already back at the office 4 days a week. Employers argue fewer days at home boosts productivity and leads to better collaboration. But critics disagree and say it leads to, among other things, more traffic congestion.
There's a lot of resistance, and what we also see is that some of the best performers are likely to walk out and leave their jobs by being forced back into the office.
Most federal government workers are required to be in the office at least 3 days a week, but Prime Minister Carney has said return to office rules are being looked at, with more details to come.
As for commercial real estate firms, they're continuing to see a boost in demand for office space in cities like Montreal, Toronto, and Vancouver as more workers return to the office full-time. John Rao, CTV News, Mississauga.
Canadian energy stocks are looking to rebound today after seeing significant losses yesterday in the aftermath of military action in Venezuela.
For more on this, we're joined by BNN Bloomberg's Lindsay Biscaya. So, Lindsay, this is, of course, a big story. What more can you tell us about this?
I mean, when we're looking at Canadian energy stocks, it hasn't really been a good news story for these stocks. We saw a big drop yesterday, some of the biggest ones down about 4%. Synovus, for example, was down by about 5%, and that's the biggest drop that stock has seen in 9 months. So we're seeing a little bit of a rebound today, but probably not as much as most Canadian energy stocks would like to see. Synovus, for example, today rebounded by about a percentage point, almost 2%. This morning it's down again. We saw Suncor at almost 2%. Enbridge currently down a little bit now. Canadian Natural Resources also down by 0.1%. So there's not a lot of movement, but it was interesting if you see those charts yesterday that we're looking at BNN Bloomberg, you see this sharp drop on Monday morning when all of this started, when all the trading started happening, and Canadian energy stocks really just taking that hit because, of course, everything that's happening between Venezuela and the U.S., it has Canadian investors who are, or any investors who are investing in Canadian energy stocks, a little bit worried about the future.
Well, let's talk about how investors are feeling and where all their fears are coming from.
Yeah, so really the situation here, I'm sure, as we've been talking about throughout the day, is Venezuelan heavy crude oil is very similar to Canadian heavy crude oil. And so a lot of investors are worried that in the long run, if the U.S. kind of takes over in Venezuela and gets things up and running, that a lot of that heavy crude that Canada imports to the U.S. to be refined would be replaced with Venezuelan heavy crude instead. So we were speaking with Brian Madden today on BNN Bloomberg, and he was talking a little bit more about some of those concerns. Have a listen.
That's sort of a knee-jerk trader's response to something that ostensibly and superficially looks bearish from a supply perspective. And I think the fear that traders may have is that there'll be an onslaught of Venezuelan barrels, which, of course, are substantively identical to the heavy grade and slates of crude like bitumen that we produce in Alberta. and accordingly are going to box out or crowd out Canadian barrels from refineries in the Midwest and the Gulf Coast, which have been specifically engineered and optimized to run heavy slates of crude. And obviously, Venezuelan crude would have a shipping cost advantage. It's much, much cheaper to float the barrels by tanker to the Gulf Coast than it is to rail them or truck them down, or pipe them down, I should say, from Alberta.
So important to note those numbers you were just seeing there, some of the Canadian energy stocks, that was before the bell this morning. So they were all trending down. Some of them were up, but not by much. And also something else that Madam was saying that I think is important to point out is for people that are maybe feeling a little bit of concern here is the infrastructure that Venezuela has to extract that oil from the ground is incredibly outdated. Like it would need a lot of updating, a lot of refurbishing. The numbers that we're hearing that Brian Madden was also talking about was $90 to $100 billion that the U.S. or any country would have to spend to get that infrastructure up to the standard it would need to be at to start extracting more oil. That's why Venezuela hasn't been producing as much oil as it has been in the past. And so that's another thing to keep in mind. It would take years for that to happen. Most economists are saying anywhere between 6 to 10 years to get that infrastructure up and running. So still a little bit of a concern for certain parts of the world that Canada does export oil to, like the Gulf of Mexico, for example. But for the most part, it's not going to happen anytime soon. It would take years.
Wow. You're also watching the price of copper today.
Yes. So this is a different story, but it's also just as interesting if you're looking at commodities. The price of copper reaching another all-time high. It reached one yesterday. Now it's past $13,000 a ton. So this is really interesting to watch, too. This is the first time, obviously, that copper has reached this new high. And it's mostly due to mine outages. There was a few natural disasters that happened in 2025 in copper mines across the world that really slowed down output of copper, the production of copper. But demand has really ramped up, right? You're seeing copper being used. It's used for so many things, wiring, industrial machinery, solar panels, but also with the race for AI and more AI data centers in 2026, copper's a big metal that is used in a lot of equipment in data centers. So a lot of people, a lot of countries are looking for copper, but there's not a lot of it being produced. So that's part of the reason for the all-time high price that we're seeing, and also the concern that the U.S. might actually slap some more tariffs on copper. There's a review coming up in June for unrefined copper, and so that's, driving up that price as well.
BNN Bloomberg, Lindsay Biscaya, we've learned a lot having you stop by today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
Take care. Have a great day. And still to come on CTV News at noon, flu cases are on the rise around the world. We'll have more on continued calls for people to get their flu shots when we return.
Get Toronto's top stories, breaking news alerts, and watch live. Download the CTV News app.
Flu cases remain high across the country, and health experts say it's not too late to get your flu shot.
The flu virus, first of all, there's 3 flu viruses that circulate seasonally. They all mutate. That's just what they do. They do this every year. They're going to continue to do this for the foreseeable future. That's what viruses do. And that's why the vaccine is slightly different every year. The flu virus mutates. We try to catch up with the vaccine, and it's a bit of an arms race. This year, the vaccine does not cover H3N2 as much as we would like. It still has some protection, just not as much as we would like. And remember, when we talk about protection, we're not just talking about protection against infection. We're also talking about mitigating severity of infection if you do get an infection and had the vaccine.
The World Health Organization says influenza activity is elevated globally, with the H3N2 strain being predominant in most of the world.
Doctors are sounding the alarm about a troubling trend among teens and kids, a rise in young people using illegal high-dose caffeine pouches.
Yeah, if a person is using these caffeine pouches, you might see that they're more irritable compared to normal. They might have a tremor in their hands and extremities, and it might appear to be more anxious. And, as you mentioned, it's dangerous because a lot of these pouches have doses of caffeine much higher than just a regular cup of coffee.
Health risks include cardiovascular issues and gastrointestinal problems. When it comes to caffeine intake for teens, Health Canada advises no more than 2.5 milligrams per kilogram of body weight. And that equates to roughly 1 cup of coffee a day for someone who weighs 125 pounds.
You're watching CTV News at noon. We'll tell you what's heading our way weather-wise when we return. Stay with us. A new champion has been crowned at the World Junior Hockey Championship.
Sweden, the World Junior Champions in Minnesota.
Sweden capturing their first gold medal since 2012, beating Czechia 4-2. This is the third time Sweden has won gold at this tournament. Meanwhile, Canada faced off against Finland for bronze after being beaten by Czechia in the semifinal.
McKenna centers it. Here's Hayes with the backhand shot, ripping it down, rebound, score!
Canada was able to beat Finland 6-3 to secure their place on the podium. The bronze is Canada's first medal at the tournament since winning gold in 2023.
All right, we got some, I guess, mild weather ahead.
Yeah, we are really heading into an above seasonal stretch. Unusual for this time of year, potentially up to 7-8 degrees by the time the week is all said and done. But before we get there, we have this freezing rain to contend with, the ice pellets, the rain, and the snow. We get a little bit of the variety pack of weather as we head throughout the day today, really for the GTA beginning now. So take care as you head out this afternoon if you are driving anywhere. Again, we are under that freezing rain warning here in the city, around the Golden Horseshoe, and the bulk of southern Ontario. So this is going to be kind of an all-day affair. It will transition over to more rain and then flurries overnight before fully moving out as we head in towards our day tomorrow, but we have to get there first. We are mild, though, +1 here in the city right now, feeling like -3. So as this system approaches and moves to that kind of slightly cooler air, that's where that chance of mixing takes place. But the good news is we do get a little warmer as we head into the afternoon and we transition to more of a straight-up rain. But the further north and east you go of the city, the cooler it is, and that's where that real tricky weather comes into play. So just be careful traveling anywhere today, even if it's on transit. If you're waiting for the bus or streetcar, just be mindful of your surroundings and the sidewalk. Temperature-wise, even warmer into the day tomorrow, warmer still on Thursday, and sunshine. It's been a while, right, since we've seen sunshine. We get it back for one day and one day only before rain and warmer weather moves in for the weekend.
What is sunshine?
What is sunshine?
We'll take it.
And that is CTV News at noon. Remember, you can get Toronto's breaking news all day long on CP24 and at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Jessica Smith and the whole team here, have a pleasant afternoon. I'm Michelle Dubé.
And I'm Nathan Downer. Be sure to join us later for CTV News at 5 and 6.